we go. Well, it's a little hard to see. My lights aren't exactly super bright for some reason. Looks like on that screen. But anyways, hi guys, we're gonna start chapter 2. Actually, this is my second time doing chapter 2 because apparently the first time, even though I processed the video all the way and it said it was all good to go, so I got rid of the original files. My mistake. It decided it was not actually finished, and it decided I need to do everything again. So I guess that's kind of okay. So we're gonna do this one in 3 parts because it's quite a few pages. So there's gonna be a little bit of a not terribly awkward break, but hopefully you won't be too thrown off by it. Today I went to get a Contra CT done. That was an experience of its own. I never had it with the injection before, and it was just a lot of fun. I've discovered that because I'm deeply uncomfortable, I tend to flirt with whoever's like nearby for nurses. More so if they're women than with men, but I will still accidentally flirt with the men, which I found that really funny when it just dawned on me that it was happening today. It's because I myself am anxious in that situation, so I'm trying to relieve my anxiety by being a little bit silly, and I think I come off as flirting, which is pretty hilarious thinking back on it. But at least I can say I'm my mother's daughter because they find me vastly entertaining. So we're going to start today with chapter 3, which is the second spirit, the Ghost of Christmas Present. He's my favorite, especially, again, the Muppets Christmas Carol one. He just makes me smile, and the song in the movie is very sweet. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different in the book. But let's jump into this, shall we? Chapter 3, the second of the 3 spirits. Awakening in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1. He felt that he was restored to consciousness in the right nick of time, for the especial purpose of holding a conference with the second messenger dispatched to him through Jacob Marley's intervention. But, finding that he turned uncomfortably cold when he began to wonder which of his curtains this new spectre would draw, he put them every one aside with his own hands, and lying down again, established a sharp lookout all round the bed. For he wished to challenge the spirit on the moment of its appearance, and did not wish to be taken by surprise and made nervous. That's just me, phasmophobia, just always like, yeah, what is that? Yeah, what is that? My older brother can attest to this. Gentlemen of the free and easy sort, who plume themselves on being acquainted with a move or two, and being usually equal to the time of day, express the wide range of their capacity for adventure by observing that they are good for anything from pitch and toss to manslaughter, between which opposite extremes, no doubt, there lives a tolerably wide and comprehensive range of subjects. Without venturing for Scrooge quite as heartily as this, I don't mind calling on you to believe that he was ready for a good broad field of strange appearances, and that nothing between a baby and a rhinoceros would have astonished him very much. Now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing. And consequently, when the bell struck 1 and no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour went by, yet nothing came. All this time he lay upon his bed, the very core and centre of a blaze of ruddy light, which streamed upon it when the clock proclaimed the hour, and which, being only light, was more alarming than a dozen ghosts, as he was powerless to make out what it meant, or would be at, and was sometimes apprehensive that he might be at that very moment an interesting case of spontaneous combustion, without having the consolation of knowing it. At last, however, he began to think, as you or I would have thought at first, for it is always the person not in the predicament who knows what ought to have been done in it, and would unquestionably have done it too. At last, I say, he began to think that the source and secret of this ghostly light might be in the adjoining room, from whence, on further tracing it, it seemed to shine. This idea taking full possession of his mind, he got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the door. The moment Scrooge's hand was on the lock, a strange voice called him by his name and bade him enter. He obeyed. It was his own room. There was no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceilings were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove, from every part of which bright gleaming berries glistened. The crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light as if so many little mirrors had been scattered there, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney as that dull petrification of a hearth had never known in Scrooge's time, or Marley's, or for many and many a winter season gone. Heaped on the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, great joints of meat, suckling pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense 12th cakes, and seething bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. In easy state upon the couch there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch, in the shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and held it up high up, to shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door. "Come in!" exclaimed the ghost. "Come in, and know me better, man!" Scrooge entered timidly, and hung his head before the spirit. He was not the dogged Scrooge he had been, and though the spirit's eyes were clear and kind, he did not like to meet them. "I am the ghost of Christmas Present," said the spirit. "Look upon me." Scrooge reverently did so. It was clothed in one simple deep green robe, or mantle, bordered with white fur. This garment hung so loosely on the figure that its capacious breast was bare, as if disdaining to be warded or concealed by any artifice. Its feet, observable beneath the ample folds of the garment, were also bare, and on its head it wore no other covering than a holly wreath, set here and there with shining icicles. Its dark brown curls were long and free as its genial face, its sparkling eye, its open hand, its cheery voice, its unconstrained demeanor, and its joyful air. Girded round its middle was an antique scabbard, but no sword was in it, and the ancient sheath was eaten up with rust. "You have never seen the like of me before," exclaimed the spirit. "Never," Scrooge made answer to it. "Have never walked forth with the younger members of my family, meaning, for I am very young, my elder brothers born these later years," pursued the phantom. "I don't think I have," said Scrooge. "I am afraid I have not. Have you had many brothers, spirit?" "More than 1,800, said the ghost. "A tremendous family to provide for," muttered Scrooge. The ghost of Christmas Present rose. "Spirit," said Scrooge submissively, "conduct me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion, and I learned a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it." Touch my robe." Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. Holly, mistletoe, rail, berries, ivy, turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, meat, pigs, sausages, oysters, pies, puddings, fruit, and punch all vanished instantly. So did the room, the fire, the ruddy glow, the hour of the night, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning, where, for the weather was severe, the people made a rough but brisk and not unpleasant kind of music, in scraping the snow from the pavement in front of their dwellings and from the tops of their houses, whence it was mad delight to the boys to see it come plumping down into the road below and splitting into artificial little snowstorms. The house fronts looked black enough, and the windows blacker, contrasting with the smooth white sheet of snow upon the roofs, and with the dirtier snow upon the ground, which last deposit had been ploughed up in deep furrows by the heavy wheels of carts and wagons, furrows that crossed and recrossed each other hundreds of times where the great streets branched off, and made intricate channels, hard to trace, in the thick yellow mud and icy water. The sky was gloomy, and the shorter streets were choked up with dingy mist, half thawed, half frozen, whose heavier particles descended in a shower of sooty atoms, as if all the chimneys in Great Britain had, by one consent, caught fire and were blazing away to their dear hearts' content. There was nothing very cheerful in the climate or the town, and yet was there an air of cheerfulness abroad that the clearest summer air and brightest summer sun might have endeavored to diffuse in vain. For the people who were shoveling away on the housetops were jovial and full of glee, calling out to one another from the parapets, and now and then exchanging a facetious snowball. Better-natured missiles by far than many a wordy jest. Laughing heartily if it went right, and not less heartily if it went wrong. The poulterers' shops were still half open, and the fruiterers were radiant in their glory. They were great round, pot-bellied baskets of chestnuts shaped like the waistcoats of jolly old gentlemen, lolling at the doors and tumbling out into the street in their apoplectic opulence. There were ruddy, brown-faced, broad-girthed Spanish onions, shining in the fatness of their growth like Spanish friars, and winking from the shelves in wanton slyness at the girls as they went by, and glanced demurely at the hung-up mistletoe. There were pears and apples clustered high in blooming pyramids. There were bunches of grapes, made in the shopkeeper's benevolence to dangle from conspicuous hooks, that people's mouths might water gratis as they passed. There were piles of filberts, mossy and brown, recalling in their fragrance ancient walks among the woods, and pleasant shufflings ankle-deep through withered leaves. There were Norfolk biffins, squab and swarthy, setting off the yellow of the oranges and lemons, and in the great compactness of their juicy persons, urgently entreating and beseeching to be carried home in paper bags and eaten after dinner. The very gold and silver fish set forth among the choice fruits in a bowl, though members of a dull and stagnant-blooded race, appeared to know that there was something going on, and, to a fish, went gasping round and round their little world in slow and passionless excitement. The grocers! Oh, the grocers! Nearly closed with perhaps 2 shutters down, or 1, but through those gaps such glimpses! It was not alone that the scales descending on the counter made a merry sound, or that the twine and roller parted company so briskly, or that the canisters were rattled up and down like juggling tricks, or even that the blended scents of tea and coffee were so grateful to the nose, and even that the raisins were so plentiful and rare, the almonds so extremely white, the sticks of cinnamon so long and straight, the other spices so delicious, the candied fruits so caked and spotted with malted sugar as to make the coldest lookers-on feel faint and subsequently bilious. Nor was it that the figs were moist and pulpy, or that the French plums blushed in modest tartness from their highly decorated boxes, or that everything was good to eat and in its Christmas dress. But the customers were also hurried and so eager in the hopeful promise of the day that they tumbled up against each other at the door, clashing their wicker baskets wildly, and left their purchases upon the counter, and came running back to fetch them, and committed hundreds of the like mistakes in the best humor possible. While the grocer and his people were so frank and fresh that the polished hearts with which they fastened their aprons behind might have been their own, worn outside for general inspection, and for Christmas daws to peck at if they chose. But soon the steeples called good people all, to church and chapel, and away they came, flocking through the streets in their best clothes and with their gayest faces, and at the same time there emerged from scores of by-streets and lanes and nameless turnings innumerable people, carrying their dinners to the bakers' shops. The sight of these poor revellers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, and, taking off the covers of their bearers as their bearers passed, sprinkled incense on their dinners from his torch. And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice, when there were angry words between some dinner carriers who had jostled each other, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humor was restored directly. For they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day, and so it was. God love it, so it was. In time the bells ceased and the bakers were shut up, and yet there was a genial shadowing forth of all these dinners and the progress of their cooking in the thawed blotch of wet above each baker's oven, where the pavement smoked as if its stones were cooking too. Is there a peculiar flavour in what you sprinkle from your torch? Asked Scrooge. There is. My own. Would it apply to any kind of dinner on this day? Asked Scrooge. To any kindly given. To a poor one most. Why to a poor one most? Asked Scrooge. Because it needs it most. Spirit, said Scrooge after a moment's thought, I wonder you, of all the beings in the many worlds about us, should desire to cramp these people's opportunities of innocent enjoyment. I, cried the spirit. You would deprive them of their means of dining every seventh day, often the only day on which they can be said to dine at all, said Scrooge. Wouldn't you? Aye, cried the spirit. You seek to close these places on the seventh day, said Scrooge, and it comes to the same thing. I seek it, exclaimed the spirit. Forgive me if I am wrong. It has been done in your name, or at least in that of your family, said Scrooge. There are some upon this earth of yours, returned the spirit, who lay claim to know us, and who do their deeds of passion, pride, ill will, hatred, envy, bigotry, and selfishness in our name, who are as strange to us and all our kith and kin as if they had never lived. Remember that, and charge their doings on themselves, not us. Scrooge promised that he would, and they went on, invisible as they had been before, into the suburbs of the town. It was a remarkable quality of the ghost, which Scrooge had observed at the baker's, that, notwithstanding his gigantic size, he could accommodate himself to any place with ease, and that he stood beneath a low roof quite as gracefully and like a supernatural creature as it was possible he could have done in any lofty hall. And perhaps it was the pleasure the good spirit had in showing off this power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature, and his sympathy with all poor men, that he led him straight to Scrooge's clerks. For there he went and took Scrooge with him, holding to his robe. And on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch. Think of that! Bob had but 15 bob a week himself. He pocketed on Saturdays but 15 copies of his Christian name, and yet the ghost of Christmas present blessed his four-roomed house. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit, Cratchit's wife, dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, but brave in ribbons, which are cheap and make a goodly show for sixpence. And she laid the cloth, assisted by Belinda Cratchit, second of her daughters, also brave in ribbons, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the saucepan of potatoes, and getting the corners of his monstrous shirt collar, Bob's private property conferred upon his son and heir in honor of the day, into his mouth, rejoiced to find himself so gallantly attired, and yearned to show his linen in the fashionable parks. And now two smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in, screaming that outside the baker's they had smelt the goose and known it for their own. And basking in the luxurious thoughts of sage and onion, these young Cratchits danced about the table and exalted Master Peter Cratchit to the skies, while he, not proud although his colours nearly choked him, blew the fire until the slow potatoes bubbling up knocked loudly on the saucepan lid to be let out and peeled. "Whatever has got your precious father then?" said Mrs. Cratchit, "and your brother, Tiny Tim, and Martha wasn't as late last Christmas Day by half an hour." "Here is Martha, mother," said a girl, appearing as she spoke. "Here is Martha, mother," cried the two young Cratchits. "Hurrah! There's such a goose, Martha!" "Why, bless your heart alive, my dear, how late you are," said Mrs. Cratchit, kissing her a dozen times and taking off her shawl and bonnet for her, with officious zeal. "We'd a deal of work to finish up last night," replied the girl, "and had to clear away this morning, mother." "Well, never mind, so long as you are come," said Mrs. Cratchit. "Sit ye down before the fire, my dear, and have a warm. Lord bless ye." "No, no, there's father coming," cried the two Cratchits, who were everywhere at once. "Hide, mother, hide!" So Martha hid herself, and in came little Bob. I'm going to cut it there, actually. I realized I was reading too far. I got a little excited. Apologies. We're going to leave it off with Martha hiding, okay? That's where we're going to leave it out. I'll probably end up rereading part of it again, just because I'll forget. So that's part 1 of 3 for this chapter. Again, it's just kind of a longer chapter than the last one. Gosh, these lights don't want to say. This is really upsetting. It's a lovely tree, I swear. I guess maybe it's time to retire this set. It's really sad. Anyways, I wanted to talk to you guys about your Christmas present. So obviously this year we are all kind of not having as much fun as usual. 2020 and COVID-19 is really kicking our butts globally. But I wanted to talk to you guys about what traditions have you developed, either this year or in years past, that are kind of still new. By years past, I mean like last year, the year before, like, you know, just something that you didn't, let me try this again. Something that you didn't do as a child that you do now as an adult. And if you are a child, just tell us about what it is, you know, that you like to do. Obviously, most of you are not children if you're watching this. It'd be weird if you are, to be perfectly honest. Because most of my friends are not children. Anyways, so I wanted to talk to you guys about my current thing. So obviously I no longer live at home. I have not lived at home for like 9 years, 8 of them being here in Japan. So I've kind of developed my own little schedule, I guess. Usually what I do the day after Thanksgiving is I set up my tree. And as of last year, I had inherited a second tree, so now I set up both of my trees. One of my trees, which I'm not going to show you this time, I'll show you that next time, hopefully. My smaller original tree that I got my first year here, I have decorated with ornaments. I try to get at least one ornament every year. I think I've missed 2 years. I just couldn't find an ornament that kind of like felt right for the year. Or things that family and friends have sent me that kind of have like an importance to them, beyond just being like really nice. This tree, however, that we're looking at right now, this is my Disney tree. So this tree is the one I inherited. It is like twice the size of the one I originally bought. And I have decorated it completely with Disney. Um, I had originally, when I first bought my small one, purchased some baubles that are Mickey shaped. I don't know if you can kind of see that. And they have like mittens, and then there's like round ones. It's kind of like a short whatever. Um, but my mother also has a tendency to try to send me a princess every year, which is really nice. I have a couple of repeats because we both forgot what she sent to me. And I also have some from other family members. I stuck this one up here. It's not Disney related, but my best friend's mom sent me this, like, it looks like a snow globe almost, with an angel in it. And I don't know, it just kind of fits better on the Disney tree than on my little tree. Probably because it's just so much bigger that it looks less like it's gonna make my tree fall over. But it really just blends with everything. And then like, you know, Billy sent me some stuff, and honestly, this is pretty hilarious. It's the Beast in the bathtub, and then I've got like this one down here, which technically lights up, and this one makes me laugh a lot because my mother sent it to me, and you're not supposed to send things with batteries in the mail overseas in an airplane. And guess what this one has? Yeah, it's got a battery in it. It was pretty funny for me to open that up and go, Mom, you're breaking the law again. This is the reason they check my boxes. Ironically, that was one of the boxes they didn't check. So why don't you guys tell me, like, do you set up your tree if you are not Christian, or you don't do Christmas, you do other holidays? What kind of things do you do to get yourself ready for the holidays that you didn't do before? Just tell me about that. And like I said, I'm feeling pretty great today. I had a rough morning. I had the CT scan though. I'm feeling pretty good now. Energy wise, spirit wise, just haven't gotten that over. It's been like a nice relief. And yeah, that's it. I guess I'll see you guys next time for part 2. Bye.